Hello everyone, subscribe to my channel to not miss new trending manhwa.
Battered and bleeding, the warrior flashes a triumphant, desperate grin. He and his comrades have pushed through overwhelming odds, nearing their final goal. Their entire struggle has been building up to this one last, crucial confrontation. With a final surge of will, he prepares to face the ultimate enemy, betting everything on this attack. Suddenly, a piercing red beam of energy cuts through the chaos, striking him down instantly. His eyes, once filled with determination, now reflect only shock and the crimson light of his defeat. Looking down, he sees the unstable, glowing core of his own life force in utter confusion. The warrior slowly comprehends the catastrophic damage dealt to his body. As his vision blurs, he reaches out, finally accepting the harsh truth of his failure. The ground is littered with his fallen allies, their valiant effort ending in a fatal, silent defeat. He lies defeated, his broken reflection a grim testament to the battle's end. His final thoughts are of regret, believing he died without accomplishing anything. Yet, even as his life fades, his eyes burn with an unyielding will to fight back. His mind flashes back to the day the archenemy of mankind, the Liquidator, first appeared. This overwhelming threat forced humanity to gather its most powerful heroes for a final stand. Among them was Brian Miller, the world-protecting shield. Who could block a meteor without a scratch? Then there was the great sage, Bella Albright, whose power was said to equal an entire division. The divine archer, Jacob Bloomfield, was legendary for felling a dragon in a single shot. And finally, the sword saint, Amy White, was lauded as the strongest swordsman to ever exist. But he and his fallen comrades were merely the so-called support unit, their efforts overshadowed by these legends. He realizes his true role was nothing more than a sacrificial pawn. Introducing himself as foot soldier Grayley, he bitterly acknowledges the immense power gap between himself and the legendary heroes. He always knew the heroes from the World Union Academy were incredible, but he never imagined the chasm in their abilities would be this vast. The legendary heroes unleash a coordinated assault, bombarding the Liquidator with everything they have. Lying defeated, he questions if his and his comrades' presence ever made a difference. He watches the Sword Saint fight, feeling utterly insignificant in comparison to her overwhelming strength. A tear of pure frustration escapes his eye as the grim reality sets in. He weeps, lamenting that all their grueling training meant nothing in the end. Despite the hero's incredible barrage, the Liquidator seems to effortlessly absorb their power. The Sword Saint's blade finally strikes true, creating a minuscule spark on the Liquidator's chest. The entity seems almost impressed, acknowledging that one of the heroes actually managed to scratch it. Deciding the game is over, the Liquidator begins to gather an overwhelming amount of crimson energy. It unleashes a devastating, wide-ranging blast that tears through the battlefield. In an instant, the silhouettes of the legendary heroes are consumed by the chaotic attack. Gray watches from the ground as humanity's greatest champions are utterly obliterated. His eyes widen in pure terror, reflecting the horrifying end of the legendary heroes. The Liquidator confirms Gray's worst fear, revealing it had only been playing around until this moment. He watches the heroes' weapons fall, realizing they were all defeated in a single, effortless blow. As despair consumes him, a final, chilling realization begins to dawn in his mind. He finally understands that victory against this foe was impossible from the start. With that last thought, his life finally gives out on the desolate battlefield. Yet, in the void, he finds himself inexplicably conscious, questioning the passage of time. Staring into his own reflection, he wonders how he can possibly still be alive after such a wound. A mysterious voice echoes through the vast, crimson expanse, claiming it has finally found him. A strange crimson sigil materializes, looming over the glowing core of his very being. His consciousness is then pulled through a swirling cosmic portal by an unseen power. Gray awakens in a strange, ruined landscape, wondering if this is the afterlife. Sensing he is not alone, he turns to confront the presence he feels nearby. Before him sits a majestic, enthroned figure, its identity a complete and imposing mystery. The mysterious figure informs Gray that he has not perished, and his fatal wounds have been completely mended. Gray's eyes widen in disbelief, a bead of sweat tracing his temple as he processes the impossible news. Remembering his own demise, he cautiously asked if this robed being was the one responsible for his revival. The entity denies this, revealing that Gray's own latent ability was the true source of his miraculous recovery. He stares into the cosmic void, utterly baffled by the claim that he possesses any significant power at all. The figure admits its own limitations, confessing it cannot fully comprehend the nature of Gray's unique ability. It then makes a bold declaration: if mastered, Gray's power could surpass even that of the dreaded Liquidator. A flicker of hope ignites in Gray's eyes as he questions his chances. but the entity only reveals its own grudge against their common foe. In a shocking move, the figure impales itself, transferring a portion of its essence in a burst of crimson energy. With a final, decisive push, the entity sends Gray's silhouette hurtling back through a portal to face his destiny. A brilliant flash of blue energy erupts, signifying the transfer of an immense power. The entity's voice echoes, promising to lend its strength as Gray is enveloped in a temporal aura. He absorbs the swirling vortex of cosmic energy, its power coursing through his very being. Gray finds himself back on the battlefield, surrounded by the bodies of his fallen comrades. He rises from the dust, his body miraculously healed and his resolve hardened. His sword now pulses with the dark, ominous energy, a power he doesn't recognize. The entity reveals this as his true, unseen power as Gray smirks with newfound confidence. With a firm stomp, he accepts this new reality, ready to test his limits. A mysterious, white-clad figure appears, its glowing mask showing surprise at his presence. Without hesitation, Gray clashes with the new foe, his dark power meeting its match. Gray glares with crimson eyes, his determination burning as brightly as the embers around him. The masked figure expresses disbelief, shocked that another powerful combatant has appeared on the battlefield. Gray notes with satisfaction that his initial strike actually managed to inflict some harm. He begins to taunt his opponent, feeling the surge of his newfound strength. Gray boldly declares that his power might even surpass that of his mysterious adversary. The white-clad warrior issues a stern warning, refusing to be looked down upon. The masked foe retaliates with unexpected force, catching Gray slightly off guard. A look of utter shock crosses Gray's face as he realizes the true power of his opponent. The mysterious fighter praises Gray, acknowledging his strength with a hint of respect. It then reveals that Gray is the first opponent to push it to its absolute limits. A volatile mix of light and shadow erupts, signaling a dramatic shift in the fight. In response, the masked warrior's crimson sigils flare with intense, focused light. A crack appears on its mask, revealing the sheer shock of witnessing Gray's true potential. Gray's silhouette transforms into a being of pure, unbridled dark energy. He manifests a colossal blade of shadow, dwarfing his opponent on the desolate landscape. The white-clad fighter is left completely stunned, unable to comprehend the sudden surge of power. It instinctively raises a defensive barrier, questioning the very nature of its new foe. The masked warrior wonders if Gray is even human, seeing the monstrous power corrupting his form. With a glare of pure crimson malice, Gray prepares to unleash his ultimate attack. A cataclysmic explosion of dark energy tears across the battlefield as their powers finally clash. The masked warrior desperately defends against the overwhelming torrent of dark energy. Despite its efforts, the force of the attack sends it skidding across the ravaged landscape. Staring at the source of this immense power, it questions the true nature of its opponent. Gray returns the sentiment, his own humanity now a question in his mind. The immense power takes its toll, causing Gray's shadowy form to collapse onto the ground. His opponent, panting from exertion, is shocked to see Gray still conscious after such an attack. Taking a moment to recover, the white-clad fighter assesses the grim situation. Gray, however, reveals his grim determination to keep fighting until his enemy is utterly destroyed. Fueled by this resolve, he lunges forward, renewing their high-speed, earth-shattering clash. His relentless assault finally breaks through, landing a critical blow on the masked warrior. The white-clad warrior, pushed to its limit, unleashes a final radiant power, forming a complex sigil of light. Suddenly, the battlefield is plunged into an artificial night. As a voice declares that time has run out, Gray is momentarily bewildered by the abrupt change in environment, questioning the sudden darkness. He quickly dismisses his confusion, his focus returning to the enemy before him. Unfazed by the previous assault, the glowing warrior nonchalantly challenges Gray's determination. Gray renews his attack with furious speed, his dark blade clashing uselessly against his opponent's new form. A look of disbelief crosses his face as he realizes his attacks are having no effect. The masked fighter reveals its invincibility within this new domain of true dusk. It mockingly advises Gray to cease his futile struggle and witness the spectacle it has created. Gray's eyes reflect a mesmerizing cosmic vista, a sight that completely captivates his attention. The entire cosmic vista is perfectly mirrored in Gray's wide, unblinking eye. His opponent's voice echoes, asking him to admire the beautiful destruction it has orchestrated. Gray can only stare up at the brilliant orb of light, a sun born from his enemy's might. A colossal pillar of energy then erupts from the ground, shaking the very fabric of this artificial night. The white-clad warrior strides forward, the calm epicenter of this radiant cataclysm. Its attack is revealed as a beam of immense power, piercing the sky from the center of a vast crater. The masked fighter then reveals its ultimate goal, to utterly pulverize Gray, leaving nothing behind. But just as it prepares to strike, a surge of unexpected blue lightning catches the warrior by surprise. The crackling energy materializes into a giant, glowing clock, a phenomenon that baffles the masked fighter. An unseen entity declares this temporal power is now sufficient to send Gray back to another time. The white-clad warrior is utterly stunned, recognizing the name of this interfering entity, Kronos. A new regal figure appears, revealing it is using all of its power to aid the powerful combatant. Kronos manifests a golden portal, declaring its intention to send Gray back to the past. Enraged by this intervention, the masked warrior can only watch as Kronos offers this as its final act of help. The colossal clock mechanism activates its temporal energy, drawing in dark, shattered fragments. As the clock's numerals are pulled into a vortex, Kronos entrusts the fate of the world to Gray. Gray suddenly awakens on his back, his crimson eyes blinking in a lush, unfamiliar forest. He sits up in confusion, questioning his whereabouts as he notices his bandaged leg. The war-torn landscape has been replaced by a peaceful, sun-drenched hill under a brilliant blue sky, surrounded by tranquility. Gray tries to comprehend the impossible situation he has been thrown into. He gazes upon a familiar sight, recognizing it as his long-lost hometown, Renato Village. The realization hits him this village was destroyed 15 years ago, meaning it shouldn't exist. He recalls Kronos' parting words, a promise to send him back in time. The impossible truth dawns on him. He has actually traveled to the past. A sharp pain from a bandage wound on his arm grounds him in this new reality. He remembers this injury clearly, a memento from a beating he received from local bullies. With the memories of his future self, he vows that this time, things will be different. Yet he recalls the overwhelming strength of his past tormentors and his inability to fight back. A wave of despair washes over him as the helplessness of his younger self returns. He suddenly questions if his epic battle against the Liquidator was nothing more than a fleeting dream. Gray decides to bide his time, planning to deal with his bullies only after he's regained his strength. His moment of resolve is cut short by a bead of sweat as he senses an unwelcome presence. Just as he feared, he runs straight into his old tormentor, a smug man named Belder. Belder and his crew surround Gray, gloating that they finally tracked him down. The bully leader tosses a sword at Gray's feet, ordering him to pick it up for a fight. Gray's crimson eyes narrow, questioning the sudden and aggressive challenge. Belder mocks his hesitation, insisting they engage in a friendly mock battle. Citing his unhealed injuries, Gray politely declines the dangerous invitation. His refusal is met with sneers, as Belder claims the blunt blades are perfectly safe. Gray knows the truth. However, a blunt sword is still a heavy lump of iron, and just as dangerous. Losing his patience, Belder slams his sword into the ground, tired of Gray's excuses. He scoffs at the idea that Gray has any choice in the matter, offering a new, sinister option. Belder then lunges forward, deciding that if Gray won't use a sword, he'll just have to fight unarmed. Gray is stunned by the blatant aggression, realizing the mock battle was a complete lie. He glances at his bandaged arm, recalling a doctor from his future explaining that a childhood injury had stunted his swordsmanship. A painful memory surfaces, making him wonder if this very encounter was the start of his miserable life. But this time, Gray effortlessly sidesteps the incoming blow, moving with an unnatural grace. A look of pure confusion crosses his face as he processes what just happened. Belder grits his teeth in frustration, his confident strike having completely missed its mark. As he dodges another series of attacks, Gray can't help but wonder if his tormentor was always this slow. His feet move with impossible speed, effortlessly evading every clumsy swing from his tormentor. Gray realizes his initial assessment was wrong. It's not that Belder is slow. The bully grows increasingly enraged, questioning why his frantic attacks can't connect. With cold focus, Gray watches the blunt blade slice harmlessly past his face. The truth dawns on him: his own body is moving with the incredible speed of his future self. Belder's crew can only stare in shock, remarking that he moves like a completely different person. Gray acknowledges that while this body is weaker, his mind is a veteran of countless battles. He finally picks up the sword, knowing his combat experience is his true weapon. Seeing Gray arm himself, Belder unleashes a furious downward strike, aiming to end it. But Gray meets the attack head-on, easily deflecting the blow with newfound confidence. The impact sends a jolt through Belder's arm. While Gray wonders if fighting such an amateur is even a challenge, he quickly dismisses any pity, remembering these are the bullies who made his past life a living hell. A predatory glint appears in his eyes as he realizes the tables have finally turned. With a single, decisive swing, Gray disarms his opponent, sending the bully's sword flying. Belder can only watch in utter shock, cursing his complete and utter failure. Gray notes how easily his foe was disarmed, confirming Belder is nothing more than an untrained thug. He takes a confident step forward, ready to use the lesson his bullies just taught him. Gray tightens his grip on the hilt, preparing to demonstrate their own twisted logic. A sinister grin spreads across his face as he recalls their claim that a blunt sword is perfectly safe. Belder freezes in fear as the flat of Gray's blade rushes toward his face. The blunt sword connects, tearing through Belder's shirt and drawing first blood. His eyes widen in disbelief, the shock of the impact registering on his face. The bully leader collapses to his knees, letting out a silent scream of agony. Gray looks down, momentarily surprised that a dull blade could inflict such a wound. He inspects the sword, confirming its blunt and realizing the true deadliness of his own strength. A dangerous glint in his eyes reveals he's not quite finished with his lesson. He swings again, this time bringing the flat of the blade directly into Belder's face. The sheer force of the blow sends the bully reeling, his pain echoing through the clearing. Gray looms over his fallen tormentor, calmly questioning his pained reaction. The bully trembles, recalling his own foolish words about the safe blunt sword. Gray smiles coldly, reminding Belder that he was the one who insisted on this fight. Belder gags in terror, staring at the blood dripping from the safe sword. Furious and humiliated, the bully leader screams at his crew to attack Gray. The lackeys hesitate, unnerved by Gray's sudden power, but decide to gang up on him. They all charge at once, hoping to overwhelm him with their numbers. Gray looks on, calmly asking if they really want to join their leader on the ground. Spurred on by Belder's command, the crew lunges forward in a desperate, final assault. Gray's expression hardens. He had planned to let this go, but they've pushed him too far. A flurry of impacts signals the swift and decisive end to the confrontation. In an instant, the entire crew is kneeling in defeat, bruised and utterly broken. Gray looks down on the defeated bullies, asking if they're from the Saria Swordsmanship Dojo. The crew admits they stopped attending, believing they had already become strong enough. Gray scoffs at their low standards but realizes this mediocre dojo might have its uses. He demands an introduction, knowing the dojo is exclusive and requires a referral. Belder pleads with him to find another way in, terrified of admitting his humiliating loss. Unimpressed by the excuses, Gray lifts his sword to make his point crystal clear. The bully leader stares in absolute terror, realizing the lesson isn't over yet. Belder instantly changes his mind, scrambling to his feet to lead the way to the dojo. The group leaves the forest behind and makes their way through the streets of a nearby town. Gray reveals his true motive for joining. He's after the dojo's recommendation slot for the academy. Belder confirms that the academy recommendation is indeed Gray's target. A nervous lackey suggests Gray is already powerful enough to skip the academy entirely. Gray's eyes glint as he internally scoffs, knowing his current strength is nowhere near enough. He recalls a dark memory of the world's strongest heroes falling before an unstoppable entity. Even at his peak, Gray's ultimate attack couldn't leave a single mark on the serious foe. He remembers the overwhelming power of his final enemy, a being of immense and unknown strength. Back in the present, he realizes that while the future is uncertain, he isn't completely without a plan. He recalls a fleeting moment in his past life, where he briefly managed to control a mysterious dark power. In that critical instant, his mind had focused on the training he received from a legendary figure. The key to his potential breakthrough was the swordsmanship taught to him by the Sword Saint. Gray clenches his fist, convinced that if he had trained like the Sword Saint, his past would have been different. He believes that superior swordsmanship could have changed the outcome of his final, devastating battle. This realization dawns on him as the true reason he was sent back in time, to master the blade. The scene shifts to the Saria dojo, where a white-haired instructor listens to Belder's pathetic story. She sarcastically recaps their failure, pointing out they used her teachings to bully someone and got thrashed. The dojo instructor, Saria, glares down at them with utter contempt and disappointment. Belder nervously tries to save face, claiming their assault was merely a mock battle. In a flash, Saria slams her sword into the floor, demonstrating her own intimidating power. The bullies recoil in terror as she furiously asks who gave them permission to make excuses. She coldly suggests that if their ambush was a mock battle, then her own display of force was one too. She presses her blade to Belder's face, giving him a final, chilling command to leave. Saria officially expels the entire crew, stripping them of their status as her students. The terrified bullies hastily retreat, scrambling out of the dojo in disgrace. With the trash taken out, she turns to Gray and apologizes for her former students' behavior. Gray humbly accepts her apology, showing a surprising amount of respect. Saria cuts to the chase, confirming Gray's desire for the academy recommendation. As a gesture of apology, she considers his request but reveals there's a catch. Saria declares she must first witness his skills for herself, a condition Gray readily accepts. Confident in her own power, she offers him the advantage of the first attack. Without a moment's hesitation, Gray unleashes a blindingly fast series of strikes. Saria calmly parries the flurry of strikes, her expression showing she's merely observing. She internally notes his swordsmanship is surprisingly practical, as if forged in countless real battles. Gray relentlessly presses his assault, his focus unwavering and intense. The instructor easily evades his attacks. Now, understanding why the bullies were so thoroughly defeated, she analyzes his style as a raw, self-taught mix with hints of formal training. Despite its flaws, she sees immense potential in him, a true diamond in the rough. Deciding she has seen enough, Saria prepares to bring their spar to a swift conclusion. With a flash of her glowing eyes, she unleashes her own powerful counter-strike. Cut off guard by her sudden speed, Gray's eyes flare as he desperately tries to defend. Their blades meet in a powerful clash, and Gray is instantly overwhelmed by her superior force. Saria unleashes a relentless barrage, expecting to end the spar with overwhelming force. But as the duel continues, she finds something deeply unsettling about her opponent. The instructor is shocked that Gray isn't just surviving her assault, but perfectly matching her speed. What began as a simple test has unexpectedly forced her to fight with everything she has. A chilling realization dawns on her, accompanied by a feeling she hasn't experienced in years. The seasoned master finds herself inexplicably terrified of the boy standing before her. Gray taps into a dark power, launching a ferocious counterattack that catches Saria completely off guard. She narrowly evades the strike, dismissing the ominous feeling as a reaction to a desperate, wild swing. But Gray knows his feint worked perfectly, having finally lured her into revealing a fatal flaw. Believing she has the upper hand, Saria moves in for the final blow, confident the match is hers. Saria's confident gaze shatters as she witnesses Gray's impossible counter. Her mind reels in utter disbelief, unable to process what just happened. The master swordsman is completely stunned, her composure cracking under the sudden reversal. Gray's blade slams into the floor, stopping her final attack just inches away. He recognizes the familiar, dark sensation, confirming the power from his past life is still within him. But the immense power proves too much, causing his body to short-circuit. He collapses to the floor, overwhelmed by the strain of his own devastating move. Saria's battle lust vanishes, replaced by genuine concern for the boy who nearly defeated her. Gray internally curses his weak body for failing to contain the overwhelming energy. He forces himself to stand, trying to assure her he's alright despite the immense backlash. Gray struggles to recover, realizing this dark power comes at a steep price and must be used sparingly. He briefly considers explaining the source of his incredible power to the stunned instructor. Saria stares back, her expression demanding answers for the impossible feat she just witnessed. He quickly dismisses the idea, knowing the truth is too unbelievable and his control is too fragile. Instead, Gray plays it cool, brushing off his near victory as simply getting carried away. Saria internally scoffs at his excuse, knowing it's impossible to slice her sword with a dull wooden blade. She glances at Gray, certain he's fully aware of the unbelievable nature of his own attack. When he feigns ignorance, she understands he's choosing to keep his terrifying secret hidden. After a moment of silent consideration, Saria's expression hardens with resolve. She turns away, deciding to move on and address the reason he came, the Academy recommendation. Saria confirms she can grant him a recommendation to the prestigious Royal Academy of Swordsmanship. However, she immediately adds a caveat, declaring she won't actually recommend that he go there. With a critical eye, she bluntly informs Gray that he is not suited for such a conventional institution. Gray's face darkens, misinterpreting her words as a final rejection of his skills. He clenches his sword, internally scolding himself for his perceived weakness throughout their spar. But Saria reveals a far greater plan, suggesting he should aim for the World Union Academy instead. Gray's eyes widen in disbelief, struggling to comprehend her unexpected proposal. She clarifies her intent: not the kingdom's finest academy, but the single most elite institution in the world. The name stuns him, as he recognizes it as the place that trained legendary heroes like the Sword Saint. He immediately questions his own worthiness, dismissing the possibility of being accepted into such a hallowed place. Saria bluntly points out the glaring truth: his body is far too weak for a swordsman. She explains that while his raw skill might fool a lesser academy, it won't be enough for the world's elite. Gray sheepishly agrees, internally questioning the bizarre mismatch between his skills and his frail physique. The reality of competing against genuine monsters sinks in, and he accepts his current body stands no chance. Saria cuts through his self-pity, reminding him that the entrance exam is still 9 months away. He balks at the timeline, knowing that 9 months is an impossibly short period to transform himself. The instructor concedes that the time is short, but her determined expression suggests she has a solution. She makes a simple but profound request, asking him to place his complete trust in her. Saria issues a chilling challenge, asking if he is truly prepared to endure the hellish training she has in mind. Gray looks her dead in the eye and gives a surprisingly honest answer. He has no desire to suffer. But despite his aversion to pain, he clenches his fist and accepts her offer. With newfound determination, he formally asks her to be his mentor for the next 9 months. A satisfied smirk spreads across Saria's face, pleased with his unwavering resolve. She wastes no time, immediately preparing to begin, much to Gray's confusion. A terrifying glint appears in her eyes as she promises to unleash his personal hell. The grueling training begins. A montage of endless physical torment and force-feeding to build his body. Days turn into weeks, with Saria forcing him to consume strange, magical concoctions to accelerate his growth. His regimen expands to include intense combat drills and impossible agility exercises. He endures the relentless torture for what feels like an eternity, until 8 months have passed. The result is a stunning transformation. His once frail body now sculpted into that of a powerful warrior. Saria inspects her student, acknowledging his impressive physical growth after her hellish training. With a proud smile, she declares his training complete, stating she has nothing left to teach him. Gray questions the timing, but Saria explains he needs to leave a month early to acclimate to the new environment. She then provides him with a heavy pouch of money to cover his travel and living expenses. He hesitates to accept her generosity, feeling that leaving a month early is far too soon. Gray can't shake the feeling that she's rushing him out of the village for some unknown reason. Saria dismisses his suspicion with a sly grin, telling him he's just overthinking things. However, her expression shifts as she reveals the real reason. A dangerous ogre's nest has been discovered nearby. She adds that their village is poorly defended, making it a prime target for the monsters. Saria looks stressed, confirming the dire situation and implying she needs him gone to handle the threat. Saria tries to downplay the danger, claiming help from the capital is on its way. She urges him to leave for the exam, insisting he shouldn't worry about the village's problems. Gray's sharp gaze, however, sees right through her flimsy reassurances. A dark premonition reveals the truth. She's lying. And staying behind means she will face the ogres alone and perish. Saria is taken aback when he calmly accepts her explanation without argument. He offers a sincere thank you for all her guidance and support over the past months. With a knowing smirk, Gray announces his departure, playing along with her ruse. A relieved smile forms on Saria's lips, believing he has taken the bait and is leaving for good. She offers a final farewell, genuinely wishing him success on his exam. Night falls over the village, setting a quiet, contemplative mood for what's to come. In the dead of night, the grim fate of a scout is revealed, a skeleton pinned to a tree by a massive club. Saria follows the bloody trail, recalling the scout's dire report about the ogre threat. She gazes into the dark woods, confirming that the path of destruction leads directly to the monster's lair. Suddenly sensing a presence, Saria whips around, startled by the unexpected company. Perched casually on a branch above is Gray, who addresses his former master with a knowing smirk. Saria's composure shatters as she stares in disbelief at the student, who was supposed to be long gone. She demands an explanation, questioning why he isn't on his way to the academy as instructed. Gray leaps down from the tree, effortlessly landing and turning her own light back on her. Caught in her deception, Saria admits the royal army isn't coming, and that she chose to face the danger alone. She confidently asserts her own strength is sufficient, claiming she knows exactly what she's up against. Saria details the enemy forces, an elite ogre leading a horde of nearly 50 minions. Gray recalls a vision, understanding the elite ogre's individual strength isn't the true threat. He foresees that the ogre's intelligence and leadership make fighting the horde alone a fatal mistake. His gaze hardens as he comes to a grim and certain conclusion. He knows that if his master fights alone, she will perish and the village will fall. This isn't just a guess. He has already witnessed this terrible future in a vision. With unwavering resolve, he formally requests to join her on the dangerous mission. Saria shuts him down, insisting once more that her strength alone is sufficient for the task. He challenges her refusal, asking if she truly believes he would only get in her way. She finally relents with a wry smile, admitting he's grown so powerful she can't even defeat him in sparring anymore. Saria argues that sparring is nothing compared to a real fight, especially against an unpredictable monster nest. She claims he lacks the necessary combat experience for such a dangerous mission, gesturing towards the grim fate of the scout. Realizing she won't budge, Gray calmly announces he has an idea to settle their dispute. Saria looks back at him, intrigued and slightly wary of his sudden proposal. He takes a combat stance, declaring he will fight her and knock her out cold. With glowing red eyes, he draws his sword and vows to take on the ogre horde alone. The former master and student share a tense, silent standoff, their wills clashing. In a flash, Gray closes the distance, holding his blade just inches from her throat to prove his point. A resigned smile touches her lips as she closes her eyes, finally giving in to his unyielding determination. She opens her eyes with a serious glow, agreeing to his plan but demanding he make a solemn promise first. She makes him promise to come back alive, a condition he readily accepts. Gray's hand tightens around his sword, his resolve now absolute. As they head into the darkness, he returns the sentiment, asking her to survive as well. They soon arrive at a massive, fortified ogre encampment nestled deep within a treacherous canyon. Saria observes the terrain, noting the ogres chose a location with no escape route, a sign of their overconfidence. Gray counters that the terrain is a double-edged sword, trapping them just as much as the enemy. Saria's gaze sharpens, acknowledging the high stakes of their mission against intelligent foes. She scans the camp, deducing the boss is hidden away and hoping to cull the horde before it emerges. Saria devises a plan, instructing Gray to begin picking off ogres from one flank. She declares she will attack from the opposite side, initiating their coordinated assault on the nest. Gray confirms he understands the strategy, his expression grim and focused. With a shared signal, they split up and charge into the camp from opposite sides. An ogre on patrol is startled by a sudden sound, turning in confusion. Saria leaps from the shadows, her sword raised high as she descends upon her first target. She lands a decisive blow, eliminating the ogre before it can even react. A nearby ogre is stunned to see its companion fall, its shock quickly turning to rage. It lets out a furious roar, alerting the entire encampment to the intruders. The horde awakens, their glowing red eyes fixing on the source of the disturbance. Meanwhile, Gray begins his own silent and deadly assault on the opposite flank. He carves a path through the monsters, his precise strikes taking down multiple enemies in a single fluid motion. Saria unleashes a furious barrage, cutting through the enraged ogres swarming her position. On the other side, Gray moves like a phantom, his blade a blur as he dispatches his own share of monsters. In a matter of moments, the battlefield falls silent, littered with the bodies of the fallen ogre horde. Saria is impressed by his performance, but Gray warns her that the real fight is just beginning. A sudden sense of unease washes over Gray as he realizes something is terribly wrong. He notes that the ogres were far too weak, a fact that contradicts the dire future he foresaw. His attention is drawn to the ominous, oversized tent at the center of the camp. From the darkness of the tent's entrance, a pair of glowing red eyes watches them intently. The unseen creature's gaze is filled with a terrifying, intelligent malice. Gray's eyes widen in shock as he senses an overwhelming power emanating from the tent. Overcome with dread, Gray urges Saria to flee, but she remains confused by his sudden panic. His eyes flare red as he grabs her, desperately trying to make her understand the immediate danger. Heeding his warning, they both turn and begin a swift retreat from the ominous encampment. Gray, however, stops to face the approaching threat, ensuring Saria can get to a safe distance. A massive, armored ogre crashes down from above, its immense power shaking the ground. Watching from afar, Saria smirks confidently, believing this to be the elite ogre boss. She seems almost honored that the leader of the horde has come out to face them personally. Gray frantically tries to correct her, screaming that this is not the true boss they need to worry about. The real enemy reveals itself with a horrifying glimpse of a monstrous, drooling maw. An even larger beast erupts from the ground, dwarfing the elite ogre and shocking them both with its terrifying presence. From the shadows, a new, even larger horde of ogres emerges, their red eyes glowing with murderous intent. Saria's confident smirk vanishes, replaced by sheer disbelief as she witnesses the true size of the enemy force. A new leader appears behind the army, its presence radiating a power far beyond that of a mere elite ogre. Gray grimly identifies this new commander as an ogre general, a foe on an entirely different level. They are now completely surrounded, with the general revealed as the nest's true boss, commanding the entire battlefield. The ogre general watches them with cold intelligence, his massive, skull-adorned weapon resting in his hands. Saria finally understands the futility of their situation. Realizing an ogre general is not a monster they can defeat alone, she grits her teeth in frustration, accepting the dire reality of their predicament. Deciding on a desperate plan, Saria charges the elite ogre, aiming to create an opening for their escape. She unleashes a powerful strike, her blade crashing against the elite ogres in a blinding flash of light. Saria's eye glows with power, focusing all her energy into a single, precise strike. She unleashes a devastating slash, aiming to incapacitate the elite ogre in one swift move. Her blade finds its mark, landing a deep gash across the monster's chest. But her momentary triumph turns to disbelief as she witnesses the impossible. The ogre's wound begins to regenerate at an alarming rate, glowing with an unnatural energy. Gray realizes the ogre general's roar is buffing the entire horde, enhancing their strength and recovery. Saria struggles against the empowered elite, feeling an overwhelming difference in their strength. Meanwhile, Gray cuts down another ogre, but the endless tide of buffed enemies is relentless. Saria calls out to Gray, entrusting him to watch her back while she faces the elite head-on. She desperately begs him to buy her time, needing a moment to formulate a new strategy. Gray realizes there's only one path forward in this impossible situation. His gaze locks onto the Ogre General, identifying the source of their problem. With grim determination, he resolves to eliminate the commander himself. He immediately puts his plan into action, clashing with the buffed ogres. Annoyed by their flanking maneuvers, he unleashes a powerful burst of energy. He executes a devastating spinning slash, clearing the area around him. Another enraged ogre roars and charges forward, undeterred by the display of power. Gray narrows his focus, intent on wiping out every enemy directly in his path. He shatters a large crystal-like structure, taking down yet another monster. His relentless assault takes a toll, as he notices his sword is cracking under the immense pressure. He notes his failing sword but is relieved to have a spare, knowing it's only a temporary solution. Without a moment's hesitation, he reaches back to draw his second weapon. Now armed with two swords, he grits his teeth, ready to unleash his full power. Believing two blades will be enough, he unleashes a flurry of slashes into the horde. He bites his tongue in concentration, pushing past his limits to cut down another monster. His blades clash against an ogre's weapon, the powerful impact sending sparks flying. A flicker of annoyance crosses his face as the buffed ogres continue to press their attack. He leaps over the sea of enemies, continuing his relentless charge toward the general. The ogre general's glowing eyes narrow, finally focusing on the warrior breaking through his ranks. Enraged by the direct challenge, the general unleashes a furious roar, his eyes blazing with power. To his horror, the general's roar buffs the horde again, making them even more powerful. He now struggles to parry a single ogre's attack, the overwhelming force staggering him. Gritting his teeth, he realizes the intelligent commander has seen through his assassination attempt. The general lets out another battle cry, commanding his supercharged army to overwhelm the lone warrior. His blade sparks violently against an enemy's weapon, a testament to their newfound strength. The sheer power of the buffed ogre forces him back, threatening to break his stance. Refusing to be stopped, he carves a path forward, determined to break their formation. He cuts his way through the sea of monsters, leaving a trail of defeated enemies in his wake. But the endless numbers take their toll as he gets struck, realizing he can't waste time on minions. In a desperate move, he grabs a nearby ogre, using it to propel himself deeper into the enemy ranks. As he dispatches one foe, another ogre swings a massive axe down on him from behind. The brutal blow connects, sending him flying from the sheer force of the impact. He realizes the general's sinister strategy, sacrificing minions to wear down and destroy his weapons. With a sharp glint in his eye, he steels his resolve, refusing to fall for the commander's trap. An elite ogre, its eye glowing with malice, lunges forward to deliver a crushing blow. He barely manages to parry the powerful fist with his blade, the force of the impact jarring him. He counters with a powerful slash of his own, aiming to shatter the monster's weapon. The brutal exchange takes its toll, and he coughs up blood from the overwhelming strain. Exhausted and battered, he falls to one knee, his second sword now broken beside him. He grimly acknowledges he's down to his final weapon, with no more spares left. He contemplates his dire situation, facing an entire army with his last remaining blade. Drawing on his past life's experience, he comes to a grim and unavoidable conclusion. He admits to himself that victory against these supercharged monsters is impossible. With his hand tightening around his hilt, he decides on a desperate, final course of action. He turns to Saria, urging her to escape while he draws the horde's full attention. Saria, however, reacts to his selfless plea with a knowing, confident smile. She calmly refuses his order to retreat, standing her ground against the elite ogre. Gray is stunned by her defiance, but she reassures him with a cryptic message. Her eye glows with a brilliant blue light, revealing she has a hidden ace up her sleeve. With a determined grin, Saria prepares to unleash a power she's been holding back. He realizes he's cornered and can no longer escape this fight. Desperation fills his eyes as the grim reality of his situation sinks in. With his last sword shattered, he admits he's completely out of options. He screams in frustration, remembering he traveled through time just to avoid this kind of failure. He grits his teeth, refusing to accept that his grand mission will end in such a place. Surrounded and disarmed, the defiant spark suddenly ignites within him. Clutching the hilt of his broken blade, he finds a new, dangerous resolve. He recalls a forgotten power from his past, realizing the fight isn't over yet. A dark, ominous energy begins to seep from his body, transforming him. He believes that by unleashing this forbidden power, he can annihilate the entire horde. He focuses on the reflection in his broken blade, forcing himself to recall a forgotten power. To manifest this power, he must perfectly remember the sensation of wielding it in his past life. Clutching the shattered hilt, he closes his eyes, his face a mask of intense concentration. He delves deep into his memories, searching for the specific feeling that will unlock his last resort. A brilliant light suddenly erupts from the broken sword as he successfully taps into his past. The blade reforms with a sinister red glow, a menacing eye appearing on the hilt as the forbidden power awakens. He unleashes a devastating swing, the newly formed energy sword cleaving through the monster horde. His arm now wields a blade of pure, dark energy, a testament to the dangerous path he has chosen. Saria watches in stunned disbelief, unable to comprehend the dark transformation taking place before her. The forbidden power begins to corrupt him, staining his face as he grimly accepts the consequences. He offers a bloody smile, trying to reassure Saria that his dark transformation is under control. With his newfound power, he carves a path of destruction through the monster horde. The sheer force of his assault shatters the Ogre General's formidable weapon. The hulking commander recoils in agony, fatally wounded by the devastating strike. Saria stares in tearful confusion, unable to comprehend the sudden shift in the battle. She turns to face her own foe, effortlessly blocking a powerful blow from an elite ogre. To her surprise, she realizes the once unbearable strength of the monster has vanished. Her glowing eye analyzes the situation, confirming the general's buff has finally disappeared. With renewed confidence, she unleashes a series of precise slashes, overwhelming her enemy. She confidently notes that without their leader's enhancement, the monsters are powerless. He pants in exhaustion, realizing they've somehow survived the overwhelming horde. With his corrupted eyes still glowing, he apologizes for breaking Saria's sword. Saria simply smiles, dismissing his apology since he was the one who saved her. As she reaches for her broken hilt, she begins to question him about his newfound power. Before he can answer, the toll of using the forbidden ability finally catches up to him. He collapses to the ground, the immense strain rendering him unconscious. Saria cries out in alarm as he lies motionless on the desolate battlefield. Gray's consciousness awakens in a dark, unfamiliar void, completely disoriented. He finds himself standing alone in an endless abyss before a mysterious, imposing structure. The structure reveals itself to be a massive, ornate door, heavily bound in chains. Sinister red energy strains against the chains, threatening to burst from the sealed door. The door begins to open on its own, revealing a sliver of the abyss as he watches in confusion. He recoils in shock, recognizing the monstrous eye of the forbidden power he just unleashed. He contemplates if fully opening this gate will grant him permanent access to that immense strength. With a bead of sweat tracing his temple, he steels his resolve to confront the source of this power. He takes a determined step forward, walking across the dark water toward the ominous gate. A terrifying memory flashes before him, revealing a demonic entity as the true origin of his ability. As he approaches, the ground beneath him glows red, pulsing with overwhelming energy. He staggers back, clutching his chest as an instinctual fear and a critical realization grip him. He understands with grim certainty that opening that door in his current state would be a fatal mistake. He realizes with terror that opening the gate means certain death, a sentiment the entity mockingly confirms. A sharp jolt rips him from the void, his consciousness snapping back to reality. He gasps for air, finding himself awake and safe in a bed, the nightmare finally over. Saria rushes to his side, her voice filled with relief as she confirms he's finally woken up. She explains he's been unconscious in the village infirmary for 5 long days. He sinks back into the pillow, realizing the forbidden power took a heavier toll than he anticipated. Saria recalls the brutal aftermath of his rampage, knowing push hard doesn't begin to cover it. Putting her concerns aside, she asks about his condition, her own injuries now apparent. He looks down, his corrupted eye focusing as he prepares to test his body's limits. To his horror, he discovers his right arm is completely powerless. Questioning if he can ever fight again, he examines the ominous black markings spreading from beneath his bandages. Saria notes his arm's immobility, but Gray realizes she can't see the corrupting marks. She grimly informs him that every bone in his right arm was shattered in the battle. He's stunned by the diagnosis, especially since he feels absolutely no pain from the injury. Saria explains his lack of pain is due to treatment with a powerful magic potion. Gray panics, knowing such a rare item is far beyond what they could ever afford. She calmly reassures him, revealing the potion was a gift from the village chief. He's bewildered, unable to understand why the chief would show him such kindness. Saria's expression hardens, cutting through his moment of self-doubt. She firmly declares that he is no longer just a porter, but the hero who saved their village. Gray is left speechless, struggling to process his new title as a hero. Just then, the village chief bursts into the infirmary, calling out Gray's name. Gray attempts to thank him for the expensive potion, but the chief vehemently cuts him off. The chief reminds him of the Ogre General, a beast that even the combined forces of nearby towns couldn't defeat. He passionately insists that Gray's actions single-handedly saved the village from certain destruction. The chief explains that the potion is a small price to pay, as everything they have is thanks to Gray and Saria. He declares that without their intervention, the entire village would have been wiped out. Overwhelmed by the praise, Gray nervously dismisses it as an exaggeration. The chief looks him dead in the eye, asserting that Gray himself knows the truth of his words. Gray's gaze hardens as the weight of his heroic deed finally begins to sink in. He recalls that in his previous life, this very village was completely annihilated by the ogre attack. The chief then pivots the conversation, inquiring about Gray's plans to attend the World Union Academy. Gray is momentarily caught off guard by the chief's knowledge of his personal ambitions. A sudden panic grips him as he calculates he only has 2 days left to reach the academy for his exam. He knows the journey takes 3 days on foot, and he lacks the funds to afford a horse for a faster trip. Desperate, he swallows his pride and urgently asks the chief if he can borrow a horse. The chief smiles, revealing he had already anticipated the request and prepared the village's finest steed. Saria smirks as the chief adds they were prepared to carry him to the academy in his sleep, if necessary. With renewed purpose, Gray pushes open the infirmary door, ready to depart. Bathed in the morning light, his gaze is filled with unshakable determination for the journey ahead. He steps outside, only to be met by the overwhelming sight of the entire village cheering for him. They hold up banners not just thanking him, but fervently praying for his success at the academy. Their faces beam with gratitude, thanking their hero for saving their homes and lives. The chief then steps forward, offering a small pouch as a token of their collective appreciation. He stares at the pouch, questioning what more they could possibly give him. The villagers reveal they all pitched in, knowing the academy's application fees were far beyond his means. His corrupted eye widens, visibly moved by this unexpected and profound act of kindness. A genuine, heartfelt smile breaks through his usual stoicism as he thanks them all. Standing by his steed, he feels the weight of their expectations, but Saria calmly tells him not to worry. She smirks, reminding him that no other academy applicant can boast about defeating an ogre general. Gray worries about his useless right arm, but Saria reminds him his left one is perfectly fine. He clenches his good hand, still doubtful about his chances with such a handicap. Saria confidently tells him one arm is all he needs, adding that he won't have to resort to his forbidden power. He expresses his fear that the exam will be too tough, but she coolly asserts he can pass with just one arm. As he mounts his steed, she guarantees the academy will recognize his talent regardless of his injury. She gives him a final, knowing smile, absolutely certain of his success. Her unwavering faith strengthens his resolve, and he grips the saddle, ready to prove her right. He reflects on how this village was destroyed in his past life, a fate he single-handedly prevented. Looking at the grateful villagers, he understands that he now has the power to change the future. With a determined smirk and glowing eyes, he sets off on his journey, ready to carve a new path. Thanks to the villager's steed, he arrives at his destination just in time for the exam. His crimson eyes gleam with focus as he prepares for the challenge ahead. He finally beholds his goal, the magnificent World Union Academy, an island fortress of learning. Gray rides towards the grand entrance, joining the throngs of other aspiring students. All the candidates are herded into a colossal arena, its sheer size meant to intimidate. An announcement declares the start of the exam ticket distribution, ordering everyone to stay put. He observes the massive crowd, realizing the intense competition he faces for just a few coveted spots. He overhears whispers about the academy's brutal pass rate, which varies wildly each year. A red-haired woman, Professor Ariel, is called forward to officiate the examination. She coolly begins the test, instructing each examinee to take the paper that materializes before them. With a single, sharp snap of her fingers, she initiates the test. A wave of golden energy washes over the arena, delivering the exam papers to each candidate. Gray watches as his own exam ticket materializes in a burst of light in his hand. He inspects his ticket, identifying him as examinee 513 for the fencing course. Ariel addresses the confused crowd, explaining that the sparse information on the paper is intentional. A confident smirk plays on her lips, hinting at the academy's unusual methods. She declares that the academy judges applicants on merit alone, ignoring factors like age, gender, or social standing. Leaning forward, she emphasizes that not even their names hold any weight at this stage. Her sharp gaze sweeps over the candidates as she proclaims their identities are utterly meaningless. To the examiners, she reveals that only the successful will earn the right to give their name, and the academy doesn't even care if it's real. Gray is baffled to be assigned to the fencing course, especially since he doesn't even have his sword with him. Professor Ariel reveals her shocking method she assigned their courses, based solely on her first impression of them. With a glowing eye, she confidently dares anyone to raise their hand if they believe their assignment is incorrect. The other candidates murmur in disbelief, certain she must be bluffing about judging the entire crowd by sight alone. They speculate that she either used mind-reading magic, or the Academy conducted extensive background checks. Seeing no objections, Ariel proceeds to the next step, telling them to check their tickets for the exam schedules. The schedule magically appears on Gray's ticket, summoning him to his exam on the first day at 11 a.m. He grimaces, realizing he has no extra time for his injured arm to recover before the test. Ariel announces that the practical exam is a one-shot deal, and being even a second late means automatic disqualification. She crushes any hope for leniency, stating the Academy will not accommodate any personal request for schedule changes. He clutches his injured arm, desperately hoping for even a slight recovery before his exam. The next day arrives, bringing with it the start of the practical test. To his dismay, he finds his arm hasn't healed at all, forcing him to face the challenge injured. An official summons him to the arena entrance, and the pressure begins to mount. He takes a moment to compose himself, refusing to let pessimism dictate his chances. He assesses his condition, noting his left arm is fully functional, while his right retains some limited movement. With renewed focus, he decides to use his observation skills to find a weakness in his examiner. He watches another candidate's exam from the sidelines, analyzing the examiner's style. A burly applicant lunges forward, unleashing a powerful strike against the examiner. The examiner, however, casually parries the blow, sending the applicant flying with overwhelming force. The examiner, a calm and collected man, effortlessly holds back the applicant's massive sword. Undeterred, the burly student grits his teeth, refusing to accept defeat so easily. He pushes with all his might, but the examiner's defense doesn't budge an inch. With a simple flick of his wrist, the examiner redirects the powerful blow, completely nullifying the attack. The applicant stares in disbelief as his own terrified reflection appears on the examiner's blade, which has stopped his attack cold. A surge of blue energy emanates from the examiner's sword as he prepares his counter. He gracefully sidesteps another desperate swing, finding the perfect opening. In a blur of motion, the examiner unleashes a devastating slash that sends his opponent flying. The applicant crashes to the ground, utterly defeated by the examiner's superior technique. His test concluded. The failed candidate can only sit in stunned silence as the examiner dismisses him. The examiner lets out a subtle, confident smirk, unimpressed by the previous challenger. Another defeated applicant slumps in despair, his hopes of joining the Academy utterly crushed. A proctor's voice rings out, summoning the next candidate to the arena, number 513. Gray acknowledges the call, grimly accepting the challenge of fighting a superior opponent with an injured arm. The examiner generously offers him the first move, standing casually as Gray draws his sword. Acknowledging his slim chances, he grips his weapon tightly, determined to fight with everything he has. He charges forward, recalling a crucial lesson that a sword is swung with the entire body, not just the arms. A memory of his master's instruction flashes in his mind, explaining how to channel power from his core. His eyes gleam with focus as he prepares to put his master's teachings to the ultimate test. He plans to compensate for his injured arm by driving force from the rest of his body into his blade. He unleashes a powerful swing, channeling his entire body's momentum into the attack. Gray grimaces, knowing his injury prevents him from fighting at his full potential. The examiner observes the unusual technique, noting the difficulty of swinging without proper arm strength. To the examiner's shock, Gray's blade meets his with unexpected force. Gray is momentarily confused, sensing something off about the examiner's sword play. He quickly realizes that the examiner's powerful swings are surprisingly slow. As their swords clash again, Gray expertly deflects the examiner's heavy blow. He confirms his theory: the examiner has immense power but lacks the speed and finesse of his master. Gray realizes that by relying on his master's superior swordsmanship, he can overcome the raw strength difference. With a plan now solidified, a dangerous glint appears in his eye as he prepares his counterattack. Exploiting the opening, Gray unleashes a flurry of swift attacks, overwhelming the examiner with pure speed. The examiner struggles to parry, his movements sluggish and predictable, confirming Gray's suspicion. With this realization, Gray sees his opponent not as an unbeatable giant, but as a beatable foe. He recalls his master's unwavering faith in him, a memory that solidifies his resolve. Their blades meet in a shower of sparks, each clash a testament to Gray's growing momentum. He presses his advantage, forcing the once inflappable examiner into a desperate defense. A confident smirk spreads across Gray's face as he realizes victory is finally within his grasp.